Hey Jeff, this time you've asked me, how do I know that God loves me? Well, in the very first video I did for you, I actually slightly encouraged that question, partly because I want to start the series with a really nice, big, meaty question. But of course, I suddenly realized it's such a big question that there's no way to answer it in a nice short video. So I'm going to split my answer. It's still going to be a short answer, but I'm going to split it over two videos. So for this video, I'm going to talk about just some ideas about love. In particular, I want to bring out the way in which we use love for a lot of different things. That might help us to think about what it means to say God loves us. So, well, I mean, it's notorious that we use this word love for a whole lot of different things. I say I love chocolate, I say I love my friends, I say I love my parents. And in English we have just this one rather simple word, love, but in other languages, Greek has a whole lot of words for love. But I'm not even thinking of the kinds of distinctions that the ancient Greeks made. I want to make a quite basic distinction, and I want to make a distinction between the emotional feeling of love, feeling love for someone, and acting lovingly towards someone. And I say feeling or emotion just to get out of the way a particular problem that sometimes when psychologists talk about emotion, they mean anything that motivates behavior. And love in the non-emotional sense, I think motivates behavior, but it doesn't involve a feeling, or at least it doesn't involve that loving feeling necessarily. So what do I mean? Well, I think you can have the feeling of love, and you can act lovingly, and you can have one without the other. And I think both ways round, right? So what would be an example? The first way round, I can feel love and not act lovingly. Well, people do that all the time, right? They feel in love with their girlfriend or boyfriend or partner or husband or wife, and then they do things that are ridiculously unloving in some cases. So they may feel in love, feel that they love, and yet do things that in the end do the other person great harm, and that's not acting out of love. The other way around, I think, is also true. You can not feel love and yet act lovingly. And I think the most obvious example of this is something like a mother of an ill child who's up all night with the crying child, the crying baby. They don't, I presume, feel that kind of tender, loving feeling necessarily, but what they're doing, the care that they're showing and the way in which they're going to great lengths to make sure that their child is okay, I mean, that is acting lovingly. So the actual feelings that they have are things like anxiety and exhaustion and maybe even frustration. But the way they act, the kindness they show, is another story. So the distinction is just between the ways in which we feel and the ways in which we act. And I kind of hinted in my previous video that I don't think God has bodily feelings in anything like the way we do. But nevertheless, God can act lovingly. He can act for our good. And that's what I mean when I say that God loves me. Now, that doesn't give me a reason. I haven't given any reason for thinking that God loves me, and I think that can be done. So next week, I'm going to make another video which is going to talk about, is it reasonable to think that God loves me? Is it reasonable to think, first of all, that God loves at all? Is loving the kind of thing that God could do? And secondly, is it reasonable to think that God loves me? But all of that next week.